Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I am one of your hosts, Bryant, with my permanent guest, Cammy. What up, Cammy? Welcome back.
Hi, thanks, Bryant.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
How are you?
No, I'm doing pretty darn good too. We had just had our Rumpelstiltskin episode go up. That was super fun. Mythstorie, we love to hit on random topics of epics, tales, and events. This one's a really fun one. We're going to the Greco-Roman roots. This is a really cool story. It reminded me a lot of the Sword of Damocles that we did about a month or so ago, because going into it, I was like, oh, the Sword of Damocles, that's going to be some badass dude. It's a little different. It's still a fun episode, fun topic, so check it out. But this time, we're going to talk about the Judgment of Paris. Cammy, who's Paris? Where's Paris? Paris, Texas? The Judgment of Paris, Texas?
No, Paris is a son of Troy, and he is known for his skill in archery.
That's right. Yeah. So King Priam, he's the king during the fall, the fable of Troy. We have an episode on Troy. I highly recommend listening to it because Troy is a really interesting place. In a nutshell, it's mythical, but there was a place, but it was ancient even to the ancient Greeks. Like 8th century Homer, who wrote about this, where a lot of the sources come from, it was like a fairy tale to him in 800 BCE, like really long time ago. So that's right. The Judgment of Paris. While Troy, the epics all related to this are epic in name. It's important event, but like when you hear the word judgment, you think like divine and retribution, and there's a lot of divinity in this. The gods are super involved. I didn't know,
and a lot of retribution later.
Yeah, but yes. But the judgment part isn't as like crazy as it may seem. So we'll get right into the story that Cammy has prepared to portray the Judgment of Paris.
Yeah, so I use theoe.com as Bryant usually uses.
Oh, the best, yeah.
For my sources, because I didn't have the right Ovid material. So also, just a little side note, you may know this as the story of the golden apple or something similar to that.
Good point.
So our story begins on the happy day of the union of Peleus and Thetis. The two, not wanting to curse their life together, invited all of the gods save one, Eris. We know her as Discord. She crashed the wedding, and as she was being thrown out, she tossed a golden apple to the crowd and said, "For the fairest." Each goddess in attendance rushed to claim her prize. Hera, being the queen of them all, claimed the apple must be hers. Athena, through pure wisdom, argued that it was hers, and Aphrodite, who claimed surely it was meant for the goddess of love and beauty. There was no settling the matter. Each goddess would have equal claim in the eyes of Zeus. Therefore, he sent his trusty messenger, Hermes, to seek out a man worthy of choosing between the gods. Fair of face and skilled of bow, young Paris was chosen, and each goddess visited him in time, offering him gifts only the divine could offer, if he chose them. Hera vowed to make him the king of all men and the wealthiest of mortals. Athena said she could ensure his victory in all wars, but only Aphrodite offered him a gift that men seek above all others. She promised him the affection of the most beautiful mortal, Helen. Paris deliberated, but he knew that his heart would win out, as it tends to. He gave the apple to Aphrodite. That night he set sail to retrieve his love from Menelaus, her husband, so that he himself might marry her. When he arrived at the palace of the king, Paris sought out his prize and wooed her with the tale of him choosing her over wealth and esteem in battle, and a throne over all men. She thought his words were simple flattery, but she appreciated the lengths this man would go to seek out her affection. And too, she appreciated his youthful beauty, so she agreed to come to Troy in the night with her new lover. And the next day, when the plot was divulged, Eris ensured every Greek hero led their army against the towers of Troy to avenge the injury of Menelaus. Each one, eager for war, manned their ships, and hoisted their long black sails.
And what happens next? Nothing important, right?
Nothing. Yeah.
I love Paris. He's like, yeah, babe. No, I could have been the king. Oh, yeah, like wars. No, babe, it's for you, babe. Babe, don't worry, babe. All you, babe. Yes. So everyone, this is sort of like the prequel. This is the Phantom Menace of the Iliad, essentially, because this, whether you listen to the show where we talked about Troy and stuff like that, or what have you, if you've seen the movie from 2004, where the beautiful Orlando Bloom plays Paris, and does a great job. This is really, this is huge. I find, like, when I was reading the story and understanding it, I found it so wild to see how, like, in many of the tellings of it, like Paris is just chilling with the gods. Like it's just like, let's go see Paris. What's Paris up to? Let's go to Troy, chill with them, and that's it. Now, again, this is extremely old. Of course, Homer is a great source that we can recognize these sort of things. But I found it really interesting that there's sculptures and engravings dating between the 8th and 4th to the 3rd century BCE that we have today that show this judgment. I mean, it's a pretty, like, Paris being a very recognizable figure, and he's, yeah, it's like the most important beauty contest ever, basically. And it's so important. It ties into so much, because this, we've kind of briefly mentioned on it, but it's sort of a revelation that I've had the more and more we do these shows. It's great. I the show is always meant to be sort of more approachable. We're not really making the show for, like, the grad student who's doing this, because he's probably yelling at us because we're missing so many details. But Troy and later Ovid would write the Aeneid. What was that? Like 40 AD or something like that, right? Like first century
it was
AD.
Yeah.
So
CE.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And Anno Domini. Duh, no, he so this was so the Aeneid is basically about the fall of Troy and how the people, when Troy was getting sacked by the angry Mycenaean dudes, they resettled and made Rome, basically. And so the judgment of Paris is like the catalyst that gets him Helen of Troy, who was Helen of Sparta, and kicks this all off.
I looked it up. The Aeneid, we're wrong. It's BCE. It was 19 BCE.
Okay, I knew we were right on the cusp.
Yeah, it's right there, like right in the.
Yeah. So right, yeah, Roman powers high, Greek culture gets super ingrained into Roman life, and the Romans, instead of rejecting the enslaved Greeks, basically, they took over the Greeks very forcefully. But there was a great the Robert Garland great courses thing I listened to recently on Greek and Roman culture. They say Greek the captive made Rome the captor, or something like that. Or I'm flipping that up. Anyway, even though Rome took them over, Greek culture took Rome over. And this is, the Trojan War and then the Aeneid interpretation of it is a great example of that. But Paris he's a mythological being. In fact, I've looked into him a little bit too, and it said that, like, there was essentially a foretelling that his birth would bring the end of Troy. And so they were like, let's kill the kid. But, like, nobody wanted to kill the kid because he was really pretty. So they tried to kill him of exposure by leaving him out. It didn't work. Apparently, a bear came up and suckled him and took care of him. And then the guy who was, like, farmers found him, and he grew up. He fought this band of thieves while he was, like, shepherding, and he actually got the name Alexandros, or Alexander. And I didn't realize this because in a few, like, Britannica and a few Wikipedia headings and things like that, it'll say Paris or Alexander / Alexandros. And I was like, I've never heard him called that. And Alexander means defender of men, and so he defended men by punching cattle thieves or whatever they were. these brigands. He stopped them, and so I just thought that was kind of wild too. I never realized that that's that connection. So like it looks like that's where the name Alexander really started getting its fame, the mythological fame. So I imagine that's where like Alexander the Great got his name, because it's like, oh, I'll be like Paris, except I won't destroy Troy. And and I just mentioned though the bear suckling him, Cammy. Who else was suckled by what and then found what? Fill in the blanks.
Romulus and Remus were suckled by a she-wolf.
That's right.
And
very famously.
They founded Rome.
Right. Not Ream. Yes. So I don't know. That was mentioned in some of the Britannica stuff that I have. I don't know if. Oh man, I need to see if maybe that was inspired by if that was a Roman thought that he was suckled by a bear. I don't think I have that handy, but it's really interesting. So the Judgment of Paris, it's as old as the stories of Troy. It has a really interesting tangling of the Trojan people, Paris, interacting with the gods so directly, like literally, like just hanging out, judging a beauty contest by the gods. And Zeus, like, what were you thinking? You got to appease Discord in some way. Her name is Discord. Like, come on. Something bad's going to happen. But so a very interesting tale. The golden apple is a really interesting part too. That actually made me think about like golden apples are featured in Norse mythology as well. They're very prominent. So I think that's something that we should touch upon at some point. Look into golden fruit in history. I'm sure that there's got to be something really great there. But this has been retold through script, through writing, through classical literature, but through sculptures, through paintings, going back from Homer's time and beyond, and prominently came up during the Latin rise. It maintained just as much importance and was included in many names that I've seen that I've mentioned before. Pausanias's description of Greece, Ptolemy Hephaestion, New History, Pseudo Apollodorus, the Bibliotheca. These are I mentioned these a lot before. These kind of range from like the 2nd century BCE to 2nd AD. So just kind of for a range, this was very much important and imbued in the learned scholars of the classical to the Roman period. So just to kind of flout the importance of it. Of course, like Homer was always studied in Greek, and then later, like Latin schoolings, it was important to study Homer. And this was an important part of it as well, the Judgment of Paris. And again, it just symbolizes how important Troy is to the histories of not only the Greeks, because those who conquered Troy were the Greeks. And then according to sort of the Roman sense of self, the people who fled Troy would later become Romans. And according to Snorri Sturluson, you can listen to episode 2 when we talk about Thor's hammer. Snorri Sturluson, 14th century or 15th century Icelandic chieftain, I guess he's the best way. He was a scholar. He even writes that Odin was a son of King Priam. So if you want to go like crazy deep, it all comes to Troy and how important it is. So yes, I think that pretty much covers it. Please take a look at some of our other episodes. Troy especially was really fun. I actually watched the movie Troy, the 2004 movie Troy, since we did that episode. I think we watched it like last fall. Kyle and I did. She hadn't seen it, so we watched it. It wasn't too bad.
Did it hold up or?
Yeah, it has some cheesy bits. It is a pretty good retelling. They don't lean on like there's no mythical intervention essentially. Like Achilles is super strong and badass, and he's not immortal. Like he just doesn't die. It's not like he's
not liking that. Like because the gods didn't come down and help with the battles.
Well, they do sort of. I mean, they do in the way that they would have in real life, where it's the interpretation of it afterward.
Sure.
It's just the cast is just so great. Like Sean Bean is Odysseus, and Brad Pitt's Achilles, and like I said, Orlando Bloom. It is such a great way. And while it does take liberties with so much, I wouldn't have really gotten interested in Greek culture in a way that I did when I was that age, when I saw it in theaters, without it. So watch those movies. I encourage people to watch those movies because you'll either like walk out with a little grain of knowledge, or you'll want to kind of explore it more, and then you go, oh, well, this is how it really was. Again, it's all not real, so it doesn't. It's like yelling at me for like getting a Spider-Man fact wrong. So please, let's take this a little easy with all that. But yeah, really fun stuff. I keep finding out what blows my mind is I keep finding out how this one little blip of an event is truly the root of like a national identity for so many cultures, and how you would have this during the late medieval to the Renaissance and even into the Enlightenment, you would have these people like Snorri Sturluson, an Icelandic dude who was trying to connect those dots to Troy
and legitimize a culture.
Exactly. There's even I should have written it down. A famous Welsh poet, was it Geoffrey Monmouth?
That's a famous poet.
Geoffrey of Monmouth. Yes. The History of the Kings of Britain, De Gescis Britonum, or the Historia Regum Britanniae. This will be my last little like Bryant's talking too much thing. In this, the History of the Kings of Britain, Geoffrey of Monmouth was a famous Welsh priest, and he was a Welsh priest during the Norman invasion. And what he kind of did was he wrote this History of the Kings of Britain in Latin, so he wanted it to be accessible as it was written in Latin. That was the way all the countries talked, because there were so many different languages, but that's how the educated communicated. And he wrote this, and in that he actually connects the word Britain comes from, in his works, comes from a man whose name was Britain, who was a Trojan, who like Odin, like Aeneid, like see, like there's these like four guys, and they're like, Odin, go to Germany, start doing stuff there. Britain, there's a great little island, just go chill there. I'm gonna go to Italy. I'll see you guys in like few thousand years, and we'll start the world wars. Cool. All right, dap. And then they're gone. So yeah, anyway, this is a 12th century text that also tries to establish the British island, the people of the British Islands, the Normans. He's actually trying to appease the Normans, because there's sort of a weird way that you can connect the Normans to like indigenous Britons, or at least like invaders from the 5th century. So he's trying to appease to that. And anyway, it's all these extremely smart, learned scholars of their times are just trying to legitimize their country's ethnic and national identity by connecting it to Troy. And it's wild. That's super insane. I think that's it. I'm done.
Okay.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. Cammy, thanks for your story. I hope everyone, if you hadn't heard about the Judgment of Paris, you walk out a little more knowledge before, like I have. Let us know if you have any suggestions. Remember, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Here's a little banner. And then you can also, mythstorie.threadless.com is where you can buy themed things with our stuff on it. I think that covers it. We're still doing the pop episodes with Cody, popular opinion episodes, where we're talking about myth stuff there. So check out his channel.
Yeah, we just did Chupacabra.
That was really fun to revisit. Yeah. Everyone, we will see you next time. Thanks for listening. Oh. Troy.
I'm hearing whispers. I'm hearing laughter. Tonight I'm trapped in a special embrace. Tonight I'm trapped in a special embrace.
All right, I just googled it for the bear and the suckling. It looks like it came from like a gathering from 1932, a book called "The Myth of the Birth of the Hero." So it doesn't look like it was. It looks like it was something that someone added later. So I think that the Romulus and Remus suckling may have inspired that addition to the story later.
Oh, I would assume the other way around, but yeah, that's cool.
That's what I was. Yeah, I was thinking someone's like, well, Romulus and Remus got suckled, so